Hey, everybody. Mike Copera with podcastcondition.com, bringing you episode 128 of What You Drinking. I just realized I don't have my banner on, so I was like, from Podcast Condition, which it doesn't even say that. There we go. What's up, Dan? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
It's been a rough week. It's been fun, and I'm looking to drink a beer.
Is Maddie and the sickness
Yeah,
stuff?
I think we're coming towards the end of it, hopefully.
Okay, that's good.
We had a resurgence because she was kind of sick last week, and then I got a call from daycare on Monday this week that she had gotten sick a couple times, and then she's been home with us every day this week up until today. So it's been a long one.
Yeah, I bet. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad you're getting a beer in to kind of dull the pain, so to speak.
What a beer it is!
What is that?
This is a 2014 1050.
Oh, nice.
Which lands exactly on the spot of 65 IBUs.
There you go. Very nice. Well done, sir.
At least the current one does. I'm trying to find if the 2014 was any different, because I've actually heard that this beer is, at one point, it was 100 IBUs.
Okay.
Which is pretty crazy. And it kind of coincides with like a cool story that I found recently regarding IBUs. So it's kind of proper that we talk about it on this episode, since we're doing 65 IBUs or higher, which is what we landed on the wheel last week, or not last week, but the last episode. So this is what I've got. What do you have, Dan? What do you?
Oh, okay. I've got AleSmith's Double IPA.
Mm.
So this is one that I hadn't had before. It's they're calling it a limited edition seasonal. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. If it's something that is just a seasonal this year and then it'll never pop up again, or it's seasonal every year, but it's a different hop edition every year or whatever. But that's a beautiful looking beer. That's as clear as any Pliny I've ever seen. Got a nice kind of rocky, not even beige, it's just straight on white head. And it's smelling awesome.
Yeah, it looks
tasting awesome too. Yeah, it's a nice one.
Yeah,
it's got like, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's like I really like the ones that have like hints of peach in there, and this one's kind of got that peachiness with the pine and the citrus. So it's tasty. I liking it.
Nice. Yeah, I've not had that one. I haven't had any of their their 6-packs. I've gone with the bigger, bombers, the gnarly wine, and the the Speedway Stout, things
right.
like that.
And like Old Numbskull.
The Numbskull is the one I was trying to think of. What did I say?
Yeah.
Gnarly wine.
Yeah.
That's the Lagunitas one. What am I saying?
No, that's all right.
But no, yeah, that's I love their barley wine too. It's I've got a few of them in my closet. So yeah, that one looks good though. So that's a bomber, you said?
Yeah, it's a 22 ouncer. It's large format, which kind of like you, I'm trying to get more and more away from those. Especially with anything that I'm trying to age, simply because you can store more and kind of go back to the well more frequently with 12-ounce bottles. You get like 3 or 4 of those, whereas you're kind of stuck with that one bomber and, having to work your way through it, or, have a bunch of people over.
Yeah.
So
if it's just you're either drinking a lot, or which, to some people that's their thing, and that more power to them. So I guess, that's who keeps buying those bombers too, unless you're, sharing or looking to have a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I honestly I gravitate towards cans so much more now. More of the 12 ouncers than the 16ers, but still I'm not gonna. A can's a can, at least. It's still for the price point, you're losing about 2 ounces a 4-pack, if as opposed to the same price for a 6-pack. So that's one way I think about it. But at the same time, there's a lot of good beers that are put in that format.
Yeah.
I just destroyed a couple this week. We had a 4-pack of the what's the black? It's not a black IPA. They call it a hopped up stout from Pipeworks called.
Oh, Lead Feather.
No, that's the black IPA from Half Acre.
Yeah.
Oh,
from Pipeworks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's the it's got the alien on the front, or the alien girl.
Yeah.
What is that called? I know what you're talking about. I can see the picture in my head, but it's getting past me. I don't remember.
Dude, is that beer good? I love that beer. I've had quite a few of them already. My wife and I split one today after we both finished work from home today. Let's see. They call it a hopped up stout. So, which is kind of funny. It's the same thing in my mind, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree.
A Close Encounter.
That's it. Yeah, it was an alien theme.
Dude, this beer is excellent. I don't know if I wish I had another one open to compare it, because I feel like there's some definite differences.
Mm-hmm.
I was also considering, I just brewed a whole batch of iced coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got like a whole big container of extracted like concentrated coffee that I think would do really good in a beer like this if you just put like the slightest bit in there.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see what this tasted like out of the can right away. I've been hanging on to this one a while. I think I have one more of these, and I've got 2 15s. Is that because this isn't a year-round one? When does this one usually come out? Do you know?
No, I think that is year-round, isn't it? If it isn't, it would probably be falling on. But okay, Ryan,
let's see. On the website, it does not say.
Yeah, I think it's not hard to find year-round.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
good one to put away then.
Yeah, and it's not a whole lot of other places are putting an MP stout out year-round, so it's kind of nice that there's one always available that you can get and rely on.
Yeah, and it's definitely a reliable one for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Oscar Blues is one of those places that it's hard. I don't think I've found a bad beer by them ever.
No, you know what I'm curious about their Beerito. That what is that? I assume it's like a Mexican lager style.
Right.
Light-bodied amber Mexican lager. I'm interested to try it just because I want to.
Yeah.
But they've got quite a bunch of different ones. They got a new one that's like an American wit, like a Belgian classic wit with orange peel, coriander. Kind of reminds me of the Rosa almost. It looks like it's called the Priscilla.
Okay.
But maybe I'm thinking of it only looking like, or thinking that it's like the Rosa from Revolution because of the fact that it's kind of like the same color can. It's like pink purplish.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, it's a can, so you can't really see what the beer looks like.
Yeah, but I like the Pinner. That's their session IPA. I feel like that's a really pretty flavorful session IPA that's out there.
Yeah, I was crushing a lot of that last summer. I haven't had any yet this year now that I think about it.
Yeah, same here. I did the exact same thing last summer. I was like all about that beer, and I haven't had any of that this year.
Yeah. But actually, Lagunitas just came back out again with that Born Yesterday, I want to say.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and we were over at Firkin last night just to have a couple. And Terry had that, and I had the Beer Hates Astronauts on tap, which that's a nice beer.
Yeah, we had that last night.
Yeah, it's another kind of Citra, pale Citra IPA. So
it's very Half Acre. Like they must have like a specific yeast strain that they use in majority of their IPAs and pale ales. It's got Half Acre. Like if I could smell that beer and you told me guess who made this, I would have to say Half Acre. It's so crazy how like they've got like a distinct smell in their paler beers.
Yeah, no, it could be the yeast strain. Although it's weird because that one, it almost seemed to me like they were going East Coast IPA on that one, especially with the cloudiness in the beer. I looked at it and I was like, wow, that is one cloudy IPA. That's not something I'm used to seeing in like a Midwestern or a West Coast IPA. but very East Coast. So, and usually that's a yeast issue, or not issue, but it's dependent on the yeast strain that you're using. So I don't know, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it smelled and tasted very half acre, definitively.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that beer. I was happy to finally get my hands on that, because when I lived in the city, about a mile away from that brewery, it would be a line out the door. You couldn't get any if you didn't stand in line like an hour or two early.
Right.
And so I never got my hands on any. And I just so happened to be at the store I regularly buy beer at. Excuse me. And he goes, I got Hayes astronauts if you want some in the back. And I was like, yeah. I goes, on the shelf yet? He's like, I'm not putting that on the shelf. He's like, it'll be gone. He's like, as soon as people hear I've got it, it's gonna be gone. So glad I got it. It was good. We opened it last night and enjoyed it very much.
Now, was that a bomber, or do they have that in cans this year?
Yeah, it was a bomber.
Yeah, that's what I thought, which is too bad.
What are you gonna do? Especially when they do those like small releases. That's probably the best format to do it. You can't do like 2 cans, or because it's like 22 ounces is pretty standard for a small release. If you do like 2 cans for the same amount, it's like it kind of defeats the purpose of. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe not defeats the purpose, but I just don't know how that would be received. I would assume not well, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question, because if you look at Pipeworks, when they switched over to the 16-ounce can format of like Ninja versus Unicorn, I don't think there was any drop-off as a result.
No, but that wasn't a beer that people stood outside the brewery on release day to wait in line for.
Well, they did back in the day, but yeah, it had been a while since people were going that bonkers for it. But I remember early on, because it was one of their first releases, that did not last. the beer was gone same day.
That's because they didn't make a lot of it either.
Yeah, that's true too.
they self-distributed to like 5 stores when they first opened up, so they didn't have much to do. That's a little bit. I get your point, but that's a little bit of a different story with them.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? So on the top of IBUs, did you see the article in Draft Magazine regarding how? Let's see, the article is called "The Case Against IBUs." Some brewers say bittering units are irrelevant when describing their beers, even IPAs.
I did, or at least I read an article like it. And it's interesting too, because one of the 2 homebrew clubs that I'm a member of is starting or is having a kind of an experiment with various hop strains. Everybody has the same base grain bill for their beer, and then everybody picks a different hop. And so people were, selecting hops with extremely high alpha acid rate, numbers, and relatively moderate to low alpha acid. And obviously, the higher they are, the less you need at the beginning of the boil to get that bitterness. Mm-hmm. So there was a debate about how everybody's hop schedule was going to kind of line up in order so that none of the beers were crazy out of the park. And at a certain point, I chimed in and was like, it's not a really exact science anyway. I mean, IBUs are an estimate. I mean, if you go into Beersmith, which is a common homebrew software application to track your recipes, it'll calculate what the IBUs are supposed to be. But and you can finish that up. What did the article you were reading say about that?
So to tag on exactly what you're saying, so they're not measured scientifically. I guess there is like a lab process that you can determine them. It involves like a spectrometer that will measure the concentration of, they call them isohumulones, which are the bittering compounds in hops.
Right.
And but most breweries, if not hardly any breweries, actually use that method. So they usually will let's say instead they'll use a formula based on the recipe to calculate how many IBUs are supposed to be in the beer, like you said.
Right.
And then it's a calculation, so it's not a measurement. And if any of the numbers that are put into the formula aren't exactly right, the final IBU is not going to be right. So it's more of a brewer's usage. For some reason the IBU unit became some sort of a marketing ploy to to tell people how bitter their beers are going to be, which is a misconception based on another point that this article makes.
Right.
So, it doesn't measure how bitter a beer is supposed to taste. So you can have like a 70 IBU double IPA, and it doesn't taste that bitter, and that's because it's a perceived, bitterness that that kind of takes into account like the malty sweetness. Like that's how this beer is 65 IBUs, and it's like an Russian Imperial stout, and it doesn't taste that bitter to me, but that's because there's a lot of, malt sweetness, and there's yeast characteristics in the body and all other factors that can make a beer taste, more or less bitter. But at the same time, IBU is all supposed to another point it makes. It's not supposed to be like how hoppy a beer is, but it's more all around a way to understand, the flavor and the bitterness. So it's like,
right.
You're trying to get the hoppiness flavoring out of a beer. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be like super bitter and kill your tongue.
Right.
So,
I don't think that article covered it, but there's another factor in this too, and there's some indication that your exposure to hoppy beers and very bitter beers over time changes your palate. In other words, your perception isn't just based on an individual beer, but how your palate evolves after having a whole bunch of these beers over time. So that's another kind of, vector on this, scale of things that happen every time you pick up a beer and drink it that are, kind of mysterious. It's not all voodoo, but it's hard to understand because there's just so many variables. It's hard to kind of spell them all out and scientifically measure everything.
Yeah, and it's just also a term that beer geeks have taken upon themselves to pretend like they are an expert about, when in fact the last point of this article is that it's a brewing tool, not like a way to describe a beer. Instead, it's, I'll just read a little bit of this. It says, brewers I talked to agreed there is a place for IBU measurements, and that's in the brew house. They can help determine consistency between batches, ensuring that the IPA you loved last month is going to be the same IPA that you love this month. So if that's even a brewer's goal at all, it says the philosophical merits of consistency is a discussion for another day. But yeah, so it's just a measuring tool for brewers themselves, rather than like, telling a consumer what beer they're going to like based on how hoppy it's supposed to be or how bitter it's supposed to be.
Right.
When in fact it comes into play with flavoring of the specific hops rather than just the bitterness out of it. So It's interesting. I've heard other articles, the roundtable, Chris Quinn's podcast from the Craft Beer Temple.
Okay.
The Beer Temple Roundtable. They did a live episode once, and I think the conversation actually involved Ray Daniels from the Cicerone program.
Sure.
And, this was before I read this article that we just went over, and this is probably like 5 months back. They did a live episode in front of a crowd where they discussed IBUs and how pointless it is, and how they really wished it wasn't even listed on cans and labels and things like that. So it's interesting. I thought that was kind of something to discuss, since we were doing an episode based on IBUs themselves. I kind of almost feel like a dork doing it, because
now I don't see why.
Now all the pros are like, we hate IBUs, or that's not for you, that's for us, basically.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there is some use to them as a consumer too. I mean, it does give you a relative scale to kind of go off of. And I think that as long as you are aware that there is a difference between an IBU figure on a bottle and perceived bitterness, that you're not getting bamboozled or, getting into something that you don't really know about, At the same time, if you're just staring at that number and that's all that you care about, then no, don't do that. You're being bad.
So let's see. There was anyways, before we get into like some many beer news and stuff that I've seen in the past, what you since our last episode, you were at a beer festival. Was it last weekend?
I think so.
You poured at
I was supposed to be at one, and I didn't get. I ended up not going because I got sick that morning.
I totally forgot about that. That sucked.
No, that did suck. I mean, it was the least well-timed stomach bug ever. But I heard about the fest afterwards. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me on that one was just getting the club in the door, because that fest had problems very early on in its history with having sponsoring, I think, some sort of homebrew related event, and then almost getting shut down as a result of it. And this was before legislation had been passed that basically gave a pathway for homebrewers to have products on exhibition like that. So a lot of it was just going to the state of Illinois and getting that damn license, which I think I already talked about last time we were on the show. No, it sounded like it went really well. I got all my empty bottles back, so the beer did not last.
Oh wow, that's cool. How many bottles did you donate?
I gave 5 gallons, or maybe it was probably just shy of 5 gallons. It was like just shy. It was like 23 bomber bottles worth of the pale ale, which seemed to go over pretty well. I actually heard a couple of people get back to me, and I was like, yeah, there's a friend of mine who's like a Nelson Sauvin freak. He's like running over with your beer saying, oh, you got to try this. I was like, oh, shut up. But the other one that I brought was a Dunkelweizen that I used 56% smoked wheat in the bill, and that really kind of balanced out well. That was all gone too, but that was a much lesser amount of beer, probably closer to like a gallon and a half, maybe 2.
Nice.
So, and then everybody else, I think the first beer to go is actually, we had a barrel aged quad on tap that one of the club members had made in a Woodford, an Old Forester bourbon barrel, and that cleared out in a hurry, it sounds like. So for a fest that went from, I think, 1 till 5 or 1 till 6, we were done serving before 4. We were like done around 3:30, 3:45.
So,
and go ahead.
Who were the pros that you guys were sandwiched between to kind of compete with?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we were sandwiched. We were actually on the end. Right next to us was actually who was it? It was, I think, Light the Lamp from Grays Lake. And we were initially actually supposed to be next to somebody who had visited on our Evanston trip, and that was Sketchbook. Those guys are great. And actually, nice. If anybody is in the area, watching, should check out Evanston and check out Sketchbook Brewing, because they really do have good stuff. Especially if you're in the area for temperance anyway, I'd highly recommend Sketchbook as well. They're good people and make good beer. I forget who else was in that tent, because they were still setting up, and I was basically a zombie when I got over there. I was like, here's my beer. Here's the tablecloth for the table. Bye.
That sucks, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. At least maybe you'll have, since you got your guys' license, you'll be able to pour at some other fests in the future, and that way you'll get to participate.
Well, and that's the whole thing, that it's an event by event licensing thing, and really it kind of falls on the shoulders of the event organizer. But since the event organizer in this particular instance was sort of like, you take care of it because we got burned that one time, I don't think we'll have to go through this process quite like this ever again. This was basically us showing, yes, this can be done. Let us pour, please.
Yeah,
please.
That's cool. Yeah. So I saw some beer news. Did you hear about Mitch Steele from Stone Brewing?
No, but I haven't. I remember there was something going on about like some sort of brewing, not marketing, but it was like financial thing. But that was. Is that related or different?
No, that was a while back. That was Greg Cook's Real Craft, I think, is the name of his program, and it's more of a financial assistance program for breweries who want to expand or open other locations or open up distribution to different areas, but not have to either sell out to a bigger brewery or financial institution or whatever. So there were. It was my understanding that it was more of like a loan situation. But when I talked to my beer guy at the store that I usually go to, he mentioned that he went to go see like a speech or some sort of a Q&A session that Greg from Stone was doing and talking about the situation. It sounded like they were like kind of donating money. It wasn't so much a loan. So I don't know. It was interesting to see, but or to hear about. But no, so Mitch Steele, he's one of their head brewers.
Okay.
Their brewmaster. He is leaving the brewery. His last day is going to be June 30th, and he's been there with them since like 2006. If you go to their YouTube page, there's a really nice video of him talking about his story with the brewery and who he's working with or who he's worked with and who he's thankful for and everything. So it looks like his last day is going to be June 30th, and then he's, I guess, going to be leaving the brewery to start one of his own.
Okay.
So I remember the video. It said, it was him talking about how, he's been a fan of Stones since before he started working with them, and he's always going to be a fan after that. So it was a nice video, and if you're a fan of his or even Stone themselves, he's in like every one of their videos usually when they're talking about a new beer that's coming out. And, he's pretty recognizable if you're a beer geek and you see enough, YouTube videos and stuff like that.
Right.
So I thought that was a pretty big deal. I guess Sierra Nevada is their new location. North Carolina just got, how we talked about LEED certification for what do you call them? The ones in Grand Rapids.
Oh, Brewery Vivant.
Brewery Vivant. So they those guys are LEED certified, but I forget what status. I think they might be silver or gold.
Right.
This new Sierra Nevada location got a platinum LEED certification, which is the highest that any brewery in the United States has gotten, apparently. So let's see if that's what it says. Yep, the highest tier offered by the U.S. Green Building Council. So the brewery received notice of the certification on Thursday, June 9th. So I thought that was a pretty huge deal. I'm wondering what that looks like, or what that qualifies you to be platinum, the highest, tier possible.
Well, I know in Brewery Vivant's case, they really focused on water usage and reclamation as being the primary source of their LEED, status. They weren't going alternative energy, I don't think, really. So my guess is that platinum is that you've now extended beyond your water concerns, and you're either setting up wind or solar, and kind of going for broke and just getting everything. Because I want to say that New Belgium also has done a lot to. I don't know if they're LEED, but I think they are, and I know they've done a lot in alternative energy sourcing for their facility.
I think they might be. Let me look, because I know that they mentioned a whole bunch. Like a handful of other American brewers have also achieved LEED certifications. Wondering if they talk about them here, or I have to click this link to see who else.
Click through.
Yeah, I'm going to click it just to see if they say anybody else. But yeah, okay, Gold Standard breweries earning LEED certification. They do talk about. I know they did talk about Brewery Vivant in this one, because I did click this earlier.
Okay.
There's a bunch, like there's a couple in Austin, Texas, Mother Earth Brewing in Kinston, North Carolina. New Belgium is currently in the process of getting the gold certification for its new Asheville brewery. Yeah. Motor Road Brewing in Chicago. Where's Motor Road? Have you ever heard of them?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the places we went to in our Chicago trip back in January. And I have to say, it was not the best brewery of the bunch. It was. They're located just south of the Loop, or in the South Loop, something like that. And it was a nice facility, but the beer styles were not matching up with what was coming in your glass. It was weird, I mean, it wasn't horrible beer, but it was just sort of like this cognitive disconnect between, basically, I remember very specifically them serving what they called was a Baltic Porter, but was very much more like a brown ale,
Really?
Yeah. it was weird. But yeah, so they're LEED certified, really?
Yeah, apparently.
Huh.
Yeah, and they also mentioned the brewery robot, like you said.
Mm.
So what new beers have you been having lately? Anything special? I saw you, or you were just mentioning the half acre one that you had at Firkin.
Oh yeah.
What else what's new going on there? Because I mean, I didn't expect them to have that, but that's kind of cool. So what other beers have they been having on tap over there?
Well, I haven't been to Firkin a whole lot lately. Been over to O'Toole's a little bit more, but O'Toole's hasn't had a whole bunch of new stuff really either. Actually, last time I was in O'Toole's, I was kind of yearning back to my days just prior to, or the beginning days of craft, or for me at least, when there was a lot more foreign beers mixed into it. So I had a Hefty from I think it was a Weihenstephaner. That was a good one. But no, a lot of the beers that I've been getting that have been kind of unusual have been from the craft beer store in Libertyville, which is actually they're setting to move about a month and a half, and they've been doing a series of tastings for about the last month now on weekends, and basically very difficult to find beers or out of market beers. So this coming week, they're actually doing 18th Street beers. On Saturday, I want to say at around 3 o'clock. But just this last Sunday, I was working at the homebrew store, and I had to run over to get boxes to get rid of a whole bunch of bottles from the homebrew store that we had lying around that we needed to organize. So I brought some of our boxes over to the craft beer store for their move, and then took some, the bomber cases back for our bottles. And while I was there, I was talking to Patrick, who's he's actually moving. He's an employee there, and he's moving away to San Francisco in about a week. So this is his last week there. And he's an avid trader, so he had gotten his hands on a couple of bottles of Cantillon. And one of the other guys at the store, Nick, is another great guy over there. Had another bottle of Cantillon as well. So they had 3 bottles of Cantillon tasting over there, and
I still haven't had that yet.
Yeah, it's good stuff. The one was their goose, the straight up goose, which is really good. The second one I had was one with a white wine grape of some sort, and I forget which one that was. But they had the last one I had was with a Merlot grape juice that had been mixed into it, and that was really spectacular. And it really kind of put into perspective the differences between Belgian sours and what Americans are producing, which tend to be a lot less balanced and a lot more sort of coming after you, with sour. And then the week before that, they had done a sort of knockdown drag out between, what was it? It was a Sip of Sunshine IPA and from Vermont, The Alchemist, the Heady Topper. So that was another one. I'd had Heady before, but I hadn't had Sip of Sunshine, and I actually like Sip of Sunshine a little bit better.
What's that from? Is that from as well?
Yeah, it's. I don't think, are they Vermont or they're North Carolina? I'll have to take a look at that. Hold on. Let's see your sip, because it's another one of those kind of IPAs right now. There you go. Sip of Sunshine, Lawson's Finest Liquids. That's right. So that's Lawson's. I think they're Vermont actually. And then the week before that, they had a bunch from, I forget where. I have to look back, but yeah, that's kind of where my tasting has been, is at the craft beer store, because they've offered this series, and it's a nice series. You'll see. I don't know what liquor stores do you have around. Do you have any around you that are kind of showcasing beers like that? I mean, they're mostly in the city, I would say, where you'll find that stuff.
Yeah, most of the places I go to, and I go to some of the chains like Binny's. It's where I get most of my stuff. But
right,
there's like a store like right across from my building's parking lot, but they don't do tastings. They'll get good stuff, but I'm very leery of the dating on some of their things. I think they hold on to shit, and I think because like right now they've got a ton of like a little crazy on in cans from Revolution and that ended, or no, that's not too bad. What was the one I was thinking of? Oh no, they've got the Ridiculous from Founders, and they're doing that now. They're doing that now, I think, in 6-packs, either 6-packs or 4-packs.
Okay.
But these are bombers, which means these are last year's, and those are not going to taste as good as they did last year when they were fresh. So, you know, I have to be careful with this store. They're good for, you know, for stuff that I know is going to be good. You know, I go there for my Anti-Hero and Daisy Cutter and shit like that. So, but for the most part, if it's rare, like, don't get me wrong, they had plenty of Bourbon County Stout. I got some of that, and they even had like vintages of that. I have a 2013 barley wine. I think it was a 13. Yeah, it was like a 13 barley wine, and I think they had some coffee. Like, they had a whole bunch of stuff that they put out along with like the 2015 stuff this past year. So
right.
Which of course, you know, I forgot to mention to you that I had the barley wine, and it was sour. But
yeah,
I didn't dislike it. Like, if I didn't know what it was supposed to be and you just gave it to me and said, this is, you know, a bourbon barrel aged, like, cherry, like a dark cherry ale or something like that with bourbon in it, I would have said, God damn, this is good.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be a barley wine, so it wasn't what it was supposed to be. So there's that in the back of your mind the whole time. But at the same time, I finished that beer and it was delicious for what it was. I liked it. It just wasn't what it was supposed to be, apparently.
Nah, that's actually because I think I have a couple of those, and I had one, and I had the same reaction. I definitely did with the coffee. The coffee was a disappointment because actually I think the coffee was even more of that sourness.
Yeah,
and
that was definitely worse because you had hints of the coffee, what it was supposed to be, but but nothing else like meshed together. Like, whereas the barley wine, like that dark cherry tartness that I got out of it, kind of worked.
Yeah,
with the bourbon somehow, but yeah, the coffee just it just like hits your taste buds in a weird way when you mix those two together. It's weird.
Yeah, no, that is definitely. And that's actually, I kind of have some hope for that one aging well in a way that was unexpected, because I have a feeling that the sourness on those and whatever compounds are produced that way age out pretty well. And if you look actually at the old ale style of beers, they're very much like barley wines, but they intentionally do have some of that sourness and tartness to them. So this could very well end up being sort of like a barrel-aged old ale inadvertently. And that kind of has me intrigued. So I'm like, I'll wait a few years, see how this spins out. So,
are you talking about the coffee, or are you talking about the barley wine?
Oh, the barley wine, definitely.
Okay, yeah.
The coffee is like, that's done, gone, bye.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I even got it. I do have another coffee, I think. Do I?
I might.
But there were rumors that people were talking about the regulars are going sour.
I think that if they were going to go sour, it would not take this long.
Goose Island acknowledged it.
You mean that everything was?
They acknowledged that there was a problem. So let me
but not with everything, but just with the.
Yeah.
Oh, really? With everything?
Yep. Hang on a second.
Ah, Jesus.
Brand stout infected. So let's go to news because that'll be the closest. No, that's not gonna work. I know it wasn't long ago. Let me see because I think I did a screenshot and I meant to actually send it to you.
Okay.
Of Goose Island's Twitter account.
Man, that's disappointing.
Yeah, but you know what? There was a really good episode of Good Beer Hunting where he interviewed a gentleman from Goose Island, the guy that's kind of in charge of Bourbon County.
Mm-hmm.
Man, is that dude stressed? I'm telling you, I feel bad for that guy. He didn't expect what is happening to happen, and he's dealing with it. He's dealing with a lot of shit. So I feel bad for him because it's not like you fucked up. You know, they were talking about how it's a strain of lacto that's been. It was discovered, I think, in the 80s, but it's not a common one where you would normally come across. So they did a lot of research about it. Let me see if I can find the episode number to kind of refer if anyone ever wants to listen to it, because it's a really good story, and it's, you know, it's not, you know, I don't want to be one of those guys that just hates on, you know, because of the facts. So it's called, so Good Beer Hunting does their regular podcast, but then they've done 2 episodes now called Hype. So if you go to May 25th, they have Hype episode number 2. It's called Bourbon County Stout. The science is mostly in. So they let me see if I can get the information more. Nope, they don't give anything. So I forget who the guy is, but anyways, it's a great interview, and they talk about, you know, just what happened and things like that. But there was definitely a recognition from Goose Island that they're looking into a lot of complaints now that some of the regular is getting talked about.
Oh man, I mean, it's weird because it has to be a process issue, and the reason being that it can't be a barrel issue because the barrel sourcing on that beer is varied. They're not all getting the same barrels from the same place. I think that they're doing blends of various different, and I mean, probably because it's almost impossible in this market to get all of one barrel now, you know, just because of the demand. That's
okay. So the barrels are breathing though. Those things. So
right.
Couldn't it be possible that one barrel is infected with this, or there's something in it and it gets out of the barrel and can infect an entire brew house? Is that not possible?
Oh, I'd imagine that is, but that's what I mean by process, is that there's got to be some way to guard against that. But I mean, I don't know.
How can you do that? It's a bacteria. It's an airborne.
Well, and that's the whole thing. I mean, I don't think that you got one barrel that has this and then it's getting all the other barrels. It's got to be something that's on the outside getting into all of them.
Okay, well, what about this? They're bottling these all through using the same equipment. So what if one barrel was infected? It's now in the equipment and it's touching every drop of beer that's going through it into all the bottles.
Yeah, I mean that's theoretically possible. I don't know. I mean, the thing of it is though that if you look at the life cycle of a lot of these organisms, they don't tend to be hugely alcohol resistant. You know, at the alcohol levels that you're talking about with these beers, it should be suppressing at the very least, or otherwise killing them dead.
Very true. And they talked about that in the podcast.
Yeah.
They were like, that's why they're like, this is a strain that we've never come across.
Yeah.
Because it is so tolerant to the high levels of alcohol that's in the Bourbon County Stout that's
weird.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I said, it's a good episode to listen to because it's a really cool explanation of what's going on, and you just hear it in the dude's voice, like he's just.
Oh, he's got to be. I mean, this is what they're kind of staking their remaining skin in the game as far as craft beer is concerned. I mean, they come out with. I mean, you can look at Sophie and you can look at the sisters and make a case for that, but really, I mean, come on. If you're looking at what kind of Goose Island is hanging their rep on, it is Bourbon County Stout. So they've got to be sweating bullets.
When the release is so huge for that beer across the country now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just Chicago, it's the country, and that's a bigger deal. And then you've got the fact that they're pricing their Bourbon County Rare, higher than any other beer. They were setting a bar there with that. That beer is, and there's no story of that beer being infected, of course. But
yeah,
yeah.
Actually, that's kind of shocking considering the haters that will say any beer is infected given any opportunity, especially when they're priced that much.
Well, I mean, I imagine a lot of people are holding on to their bottles too. So
yeah,
who knows? But it's very interesting. It's, but like you said, they're putting a lot of that on, at stake with that beer. And that is, the beer that they're synonymous with. You could say that those those others, the Lolita and all that other stuff. Yeah, those are great. Those are great beers they do, but that's not what they're known across the country for now at this point.
Right.
So.
Well, and here's an interesting question for next year. I mean, given what's happened and given the fact that it probably won't happen again, but could happen again, what does that make you think about as far as the pricing and what you're willing to pay for a bottle of, maybe not the base Bourbon County stout, because that's still relatively, that's an endurable price point, but like some of the price points on the variants have really kicked up a bit. Does that make you think twice now, or does that make you go, nah, damn the torpedoes, this is a one-time deal, that's never going to happen again? No, I'm willing to pay $50 for a bottle of that.
So I think there's two things that pop up in my mind with that question, and these are stories that I've heard on either other podcasts or just stories I've read. But so there's been other breweries that have a huge release that people look forward to. I want to say it's Central Waters, but I don't want to, because I don't know if it's true. But I know there's a beer that's pretty huge, and it's a pretty popular release, just kind of not as big as Bourbon County, of course, but there was an infection issue, and people still came back for it the next year, and they didn't change it. So I don't think Goose Island would. I think they're going to play this off like this is a one-time thing. This will never happen again. Buy the beer, and people are going to. So you've got that. What was my other point? God damn it. There was something. I had a really good recall that I had on another story or a point with Goose Island. Oh, yeah. So there's an issue or an accusation of them kind of playing into the black market. So the black market is kind of setting, there's set prices based on the black market. Like there's only going to be, whatever you're willing to pay on a beer that you sell online. I don't do that because I feel it's kind of shady, and I feel
it's feeding the beast for sure.
It's feeding the beast. It's also like you're putting yourself out there to get screwed over sometimes too. I've heard stories of people who've gotten bottles of beer that have even been wax covered with not the right beer in it. Like people have like drank the real beer and then used the bottle, refilled it with something else, and re-waxed it over. So I'm not saying that that's happened a lot, but it has happened from what I've heard.
Right.
So what's going on with Goose Island is that they, at their tap room at their Fulton location. I have not been to that location yet. Have you seen that tap room yet?
I've not been inside of it. I know it's there. I've been damn curious about it. And actually, it's right on the way to the Beer Under Glass. So I was always thinking that would be a nice stop on the way to or from that fest.
Yeah. There's like 3 breweries on the way to that fest from the train ride from from downtown to Garfield Park. It's like All Rise, there's Goose Island, and then I saw another one this year that I did not realize it was right there. But anyways, so from what I understand, you can go there and buy old vintage bottles of the Bourbon County Stout.
Oh, wow.
But
you're paying a premium.
You're not only paying a premium, it is exactly 50% of the black market price. So if you go on, I forget what website this podcast mentioned, there's a black market. It's like a Kelly Blue Book for black market beer, basically. And every single price for the Bourbon County vintages at this place was exactly half of what the black market is. So so they're playing into like this is a real price, but you only have to pay half of it here, which is crazy because it's not like you can take it home with you when you buy it there. You have to consume it there on premise. So you're paying So let's say a bottle is like $150 online in the black market for, an older version. Even last year's version, not 2015, but sorry, 2014. If you go on there for that, it could be, let's say $150 online.
Holy shit.
I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not saying
right.
But if it is, you're paying $75 for a 12-ounce bottle of Bourbon County Stout to drink right there on premise. You can't take it home with you.
Right.
Fuck, is that a jab? Like they've been accused specifically on their Facebook page. Like they've been like, you're gouging, dude. Like what the hell? And they kind of danced around it somehow. I forget how the conversation went on the podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about how they were just like to the penny, exactly 50% of what the black market charges.
Right. But that's nothing new, really. I mean, if you take a look at Three Floyd's pricing strategy, especially on their their brewery release beers, like the barrel-aged Moloko. The barrel-aged Moloko that I have in my basement, and the like the Conquistador de Muerte or whatever that is, which is the same base beer but with chili peppers in it. Both of those were $50 bottles of beer that I purchased 2 years ago, and that's probably the most I've ever spent on a bottle of beer, especially directly from the brewery. But those prices, that's 2 years ago they were doing this, and you could tell it was very much predicated on the idea that there was a market for these weird, or not weird, but hard to get beers that Three Floyds was capitalizing on, which is kind of interesting the way they talk out of both sides of their mouth. Because if you look at their rhetoric about, Dark Lord Day and about reselling the beers, they're totally against it. But, if the pricing that people are getting on the black market for these beers drives up the demand and the price for their beers that they sell out of the brewery, they'll go right ahead and charge you that money, Well,
I mean, is it the fact that, because okay, so I get what you're saying. The $50 price point, though, that's been pretty standard all around for all the vintages of Dark Lord every year at Dark Lord Day since they've been doing vintages. Which
hasn't been that long, right?
Maybe 3 years now.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
3 or 4, I don't know, but so anyways, so that's always been the price, and then on top of that, they did the is that the Baller Stout, the one that's like a mix of Dark Lord and Darkness from Surly and a bunch of other shit. So that, I think that was 35. I think that was like 35. And that's still pretty not bad. I mean, that's a good beer too, but for those beers, it's always been $50, I think. But at the same time, you're right. They do always, they don't want you selling their beers on the black market. They will actually, if they find you posting shit, they will find your IP address and they will ban you from buying Dark Lord Day tickets ever again.
Right.
So at the same time, that trying to cut that off on the black market, I think entices or will get people to want to be at the festival more. If you can't get these beers, if you can't even get these online now, well, there's only one place I can go. So that they're going to sell more tickets, and maybe this new pricing program that they did this year, as much as I thought it was a little higher than it should have been, it's close to pretty good, as far as.
I was going to say, considering what you get with the whole package, it's pretty reasonable.
I mean, because I never bought. They give you like $40 for vouchers for food and merchandise. Well, for me, I didn't buy $40 worth of food, and I definitely didn't buy $40 worth of merchandise. Every once in a while, I would buy a T-shirt. I think I bought a poster once, but I would buy one thing of food. And that $10, $15 at most.
Yeah.
So that $40 there, that doesn't equal. You don't always get opportunity to buy a vintage. You used to get a scratch off ticket that said yes or no, and if it said yes, you could.
Right.
You had the pleasure of spending another $50 for another bottle of bourbon or Dark Lord.
Thanks, Three Floyds.
Yeah, so it was probably about $40 to $50 more than I would typically spend on a Dark Lord day, which with a guaranteed vintage and guaranteed four bottles, and the fact that you could go there and enjoy some food and hang out and stuff, I would almost say it would be worth it next year if I was going. Who knows what life will throw at me at that point, at that time of year, next year. So, I may or may not be in the position where I could go. But if so, money won't be the obstacle. You know what I mean? So I would almost say I would go next year if possible. I do have a bottle that a friend of mine had purchased for me and has aside. So my vertical continues.
That's right, unimpeded.
Yeah, not as vast as normal. Normally, I have about 2 bottles for each year, but now I've got 115. I think I've got a 10 or a 12 that I just gave away for like a 4-pack or 2 4-packs of Heady Topper actually. So I'm still looking pretty good, but I don't know. I feel like I want to do the 10-year vertical, but at the same time, I'm like, are those is that 2009 and 2010 is going to taste as good in another 4 years?
I was going to say, with that particular beer and that particular style, going out 10 years, you are definitely you're rolling dice. I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to come up snake guys every time, but it does mean that there's a pretty good chance that a number of those vintages are not going to make it. Some of them will, and those will probably be spectacular.
So does the wax do anything to help prevent oxidation?
Marginally. I mean, it depends on how good the seal is.
Yeah.
I mean, they're dipping them, and it's probably pretty good, but oxidation isn't the only issue. I mean, it's just kind of those beers live and die on how well they were made, and I think that size batch is small enough that there's a pretty vast amount of inconsistency between years in terms of how, not necessarily how well they were made, but how the conditions that year affected the beer. Sometimes it's a different coffee strain. Sometimes it's just, I don't know if they were messing around with a recipe a little bit or not, or if, someone dropped something in the soup, so to speak.
That just sounds gross.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what? This tastes vaguely of cell phone. But yeah, I mean, because you hear a lot about it, that those Dark Lord vintages really do have a lot of variability between them. And I mean, you've probably experienced it yourself from having enough of them around and tasting them over the years. Know that, yeah, like the 2014 and the 2012, I had them both when they were 2 years old, totally different.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely different coffees in those two as well. Like the 14, either the 14 or 15 had unicorn blood in it from Dark Matter. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other ones were either usually, I think they used to be Intelligentsia.
Yeah.
I can't remember if there was even always coffee in it, to be honest. So, there's definitely going to be some differences. 2009, when I had it about 3 years ago, was tasting amazing. It was good stuff. I think you had that.
I think that was your party. I did have some of that, and that was really nice.
But that was 2014, so that was like a couple of years ago still to this point. So who knows?
Yeah.
But all right, I think we should wrap this up. We're already past 9 o'clock. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, just past.
So I'll let the wheel spin. I don't think we need to add anything. It looks pretty.
No, that looks full.
Pretty full to me. So I'll go ahead and give her a spin and see what it says. We've got some good stuff on there and a lot of summer things too. So let's see.
Oh, and very, very summary this hey Pilsner.
We got some Pilsners to drink next week.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm excited. Yeah, I didn't think Kevin was going to come. He's in Jamaica this week, so he may be able to join us to let us know about he's having a nice ritzy time out there.
Nice.
Yeah, their family kind of splurged for a family trip with his in-laws and stuff, and they're living it up. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to make them sound too I don't know. It's not a normal trip for anybody that I know. So it's been kind of cool. Obviously, they've pretty much got red stripe out there, so I know that's.
I was going to say rocking the red stripe,
but he should maybe be back next week, and hopefully Mike, and maybe we'll see Skylar every once in a while one of these days. Chris, I haven't seen either.
I was going to say, Chris, if you're out there,
hello.
Come on by.
I know we miss Chris. All right, guys, or guy. We're gonna wrap it up here. But anyone who's watching this on YouTube, we've had some viewers popping in and out. Like we'd have ones and twos jumping on and thinking like, "What is this?" And like, "Oh, I hate that guy's face. I'm gonna get out of here." So if you're listening or you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, we upload these episodes every time we broadcast every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And feel free to jump on if you want to ever be a part of the show. You can always join our circles. We'll get you the invite every week, and we'll do this every Wednesday. We drink a new style or some sort of a new topic of beer. So next week we will be doing Pilsners. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that fun stuff, and we will see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.